Commander Verena strode down the cold, metallic corridor of the Xinthari detention wing. Her steps echoed through the empty hallways, sharp and confident, a sound that usually made prisoners flinch. She was one of the most respected officers in the Xinthari Alliance, known for her strict discipline, sharp mind, and the way she could command fear without raising her voice. Today, however, she would face something different. Something that might test everything she knew about fear, control, and the humans she had long considered unpredictable. In the holding chamber, the air was cool and sterile. A single metal chair stood in the center of the room, surrounded by small, blinking lights that marked the motion sensors. Behind one of the control panels, a young Xinthari guard waited, his antennae twitching nervously. He had heard the stories about this human ally Turner, a man captured near the edge of the Xinthari patrol zone. Rumors about humans were everywhere. They were chaotic, untrained, impulsive, impossible to predict. Some even said humans thrived on risk and danger. Verena entered the chamber, her armor shining under the white light. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, locked onto the figure sitting calmly in the chair. Eli Turner was unlike any human she had ever seen. He was average in build, wearing a simple uniform of his own species. There were no weapons visible, no signs of resistance, yet he did not look afraid. Instead of shrinking back or bowing his head, Eli turned his face toward her and smiled. It was not a nervous or polite smile. It was calm, almost effortless. A smile that seemed to say, "I am not afraid, and I will not bow." Verena froze for a fraction of a second. That smile, so simple, so human, unsettled her more than any act of rebellion could. She had spent years mastering intimidation, learning how to make beings tremble, how to bend minds with authority alone. But this human simply smiled. "Sit down," she commanded, her voice sharp and cold. She expected him to hesitate, maybe protest, or at least frown. Instead, he remained seated, his posture relaxed, his smile unchanged. "I am comfortable," Eli said quietly, his voice steady. "You may proceed." Erna's antennae twitched slightly. It was a small sign of irritation. Humans were not supposed to be this composed. They were supposed to panic, to struggle against the rules, to show some trace of fear. But Eli showed none. She stepped closer, her presence dominating the room. A faint hum of energy ran through the armor she wore. A display of the advanced technology Xinthari used to enhance intimidation. Her shadow fell across Eli, sharp and long, as if to engulf him. She expected him to shrink back, to react in some way that confirmed the stories she had been told. But he didn't. He simply tilted his head, looking at her with curiosity. "You are very tall," he said, "and your armor is impressive. It must take a lot of skill to move in it." Verena blinked. He was complimenting her. She had expected defiance, but this calm observation was something she had not prepared for. She studied him, searching for signs of weakness, anything to exploit. Humans were clever, she reminded herself. But even clever humans usually reacted with fear. Not this one. She took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "You are a prisoner," she said, her tone low and precise. "Your species has been warned about Xinthari patrols. You have violated our territory. Your actions could have been considered hostile." Eli nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "I did not intend harm. My ship was damaged. I was trying to repair it when your patrol found me." Verena paused. The guard behind her stiffened. It was unusual for a human to speak this calmly when faced with accusations. Most would argue, panic, or even try to flee. But Eli remained seated, his smile never fading. "And yet," she said, moving closer, "you allowed yourself to be captured instead of resisting." "I could not resist your patrol," Eli replied. "You outnumbered me. But I did what I could to avoid conflict." Verena studied him for a long moment. She had faced prisoners before, but none had made her feel this strange mix of frustration and curiosity. His calm, his willingness to face her without fear, even his smile, it was unusual. Almost human. She activated a small holographic display from her wrist device. Images of Xinthari patrol ships, the strength of their fleet, and even the punishment for trespass filled the room. The holograms moved like living creatures, shining in bright colors. Usually, such displays frightened captives, made them shrink or panic. Eli leaned forward slightly to observe the display. "Impressive," he said. "You have a strong fleet. But your strength does not always guarantee control." Verena felt a small twinge of irritation. How could he speak so calmly? Was this arrogance or ignorance? She did not know. She had faced thousands of prisoners, but never one who treated authority like a casual suggestion rather than a command. "Explain yourself," she demanded. "Why are you so at ease?" Eli smiled again, faintly this time, almost like a quiet secret shared with himself. "Because fear only works if you give it power. You are strong, yes, but you are not. Terrifying. Not to me." Verena's eyes narrowed. The statement was simple, yet it carried weight. She had trained herself to inspire fear. She had studied the psychology of intimidation across countless species. And yet this human, it was as if her entire understanding of power was being challenged by a single smile. She circled him slowly, her armored boots making low thuds on the metal floor. "You are brave or foolish," she said. "Perhaps both. Do you understand what your actions could have caused?" Eli nodded. "I understand. But I also understand that not all conflicts are won by fear. Some are won by trust, by courage, by understanding." Verena paused. His words were strange, philosophical almost, and yet they were not empty. She could feel the conviction behind them, the quiet strength that had allowed him to smile when all others would have trembled. For the first time, she felt doubt. Not about him specifically, but about everything she thought she knew about humans. They were unpredictable, yes. Dangerous, yes. But perhaps there was more to them, more than chaos, more than defiance. Perhaps they had qualities that even the Zinthri had not fully considered. "You speak boldly," she said, lowering her voice. "Do you truly believe that your species can survive in a universe like this? Among beings far stronger than you?" Eli's eyes sparkled. "We survive because we adapt, because we learn, because we refuse to give up, even when the odds are against us. You might think strength is only in weapons or fleets, but strength is also in courage, in hope, in choosing to act even when everything seems impossible." Verena stopped in her tracks. His words were simple, yet they carried an unexpected weight. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a sense of admiration she was not accustomed to feeling. For centuries, the Zinthri had believed fear was the greatest tool, and yet here was a human, calmly seated, smiling, speaking of courage and hope. The guard shifted behind her, noticing the change in her demeanor. Commander Verena rarely hesitated, rarely questioned her own authority. But now, as she looked at Eli, she realized that perhaps there was something she had never considered. "You do not fear me," she said quietly. "I do not fear anyone without reason," Eli replied. "But I also do not underestimate anyone. Fear is not always the answer. Sometimes understanding is stronger." Verena's antennae twitched slightly. The human had already begun to change the tone of this encounter simply by being himself. She had entered the room expecting to dominate, to intimidate, to bend him to her will. Instead, she found herself questioning her own assumptions, her own beliefs. For the first time, she wondered, perhaps the humans were not just a species to be controlled. Perhaps they were something more. Something unpredictable. Something remarkable. She took a deep breath and sat down opposite him, unarmored, for the first time in her career. It was a gesture she had never made with a prisoner. Yet something about Eli's calm smile, his simple honesty, made her feel that this was necessary. "You are unlike any human I have ever encountered," she said quietly, "and I have studied your species for decades." Eli's smile widened slightly, just enough to show he understood. "And you are unlike any Zinthri I have met," he said. "Perhaps that is why we can talk instead of fight." Verena allowed herself a faint smile. It was small, subtle, but it carried a world of thought behind it. For the first time, she realized that perhaps fear was not the only way to achieve understanding. And as she looked at him, seated calmly and smiling, she understood something important. This human was not intimidated. Not by her, not by the Zinthari fleet, not by the universe itself. And that smile, so simple, so human, would change the way she thought about her own strength. For the first time in her life, Commander Verena faced a challenge she could not overpower with armor, authority, or force. A challenge that required something she had never needed before: curiosity, patience, and the willingness to truly see another being. And Eli Turner, simply by smiling, had given her that challenge. The room was quiet after their first exchange. Commander Verena sat opposite Eli Turner, her mind unusually alert. She was a master of strategy, trained to anticipate reactions, to dominate conversations, and to bend weaker species to her will. Yet this human seemed immune to everything she had learned. Calm, confident, smiling, combination that both frustrated and intrigued her. Eli leaned back slightly, hands resting on his knees. His eyes, sharp and steady, watched her carefully. He was not pretending to be brave. This was simply his way. And in that simple posture, in that gentle, unwavering smile, he had already begun to shift the balance in the room. Verena decided she would not be outmaneuvered. She had faced clever prisoners before, and she knew humans were considered unpredictable. If they could be unpredictable, she would match them. She would test him. A game of minds, she thought, and she intended to win. "Tell me, human," she began, her voice smooth and controlled, "why do you smile so easily? Do you think your calmness will protect you?" Eli tilted his head slightly, considering her question. "I smile," he said, "because I see things clearly. Fear is a choice, and I choose not to give it power over me. You can intimidate many, Commander Verena, but I am not afraid, because I understand what I can control and what I cannot." And Tenny twitched in mild irritation. It was rare for a prisoner to speak with such confidence. Rare for one to even challenge her tone, let alone remain polite while doing so. Yet there was something in his calmness that did not provoke anger. It provoked curiosity. "Do you really think understanding is stronger than fear?" she asked, leaning forward slightly. The gesture was deliberate. It was meant to assert control, to show that she was leading the conversation. "I do," Eli replied simply. "Humans survive because we adapt, because we learn from every situation, and because we support one another. Fear alone cannot make us stronger. It can only make us obedient." Verena paused. He spoke like a philosopher, yet without pretension. His words were direct, simple, and yet they carried a weight she could not ignore. She had spent her life enforcing obedience, believing that fear was the foundation of strength. And yet here was a human telling her otherwise, and somehow making sense. "You speak boldly," she said, "and yet you are a prisoner. You are alone. Do you not feel fear at all?" Eli shook his head. "I feel it sometimes," he admitted, "but I do not let it control me. I have seen fear destroy better minds than mine. I have seen species lose their way because they allowed fear to rule their actions. I choose not to." Verena could not help but study him more closely. His posture, his tone, the slight smile that never left his face, these were not signs of arrogance. These were signs of confidence, of awareness, of something deeper than simple bravery. She had trained for years to read alien behavior, to detect deceit, to anticipate reactions. But Eli Turner was teaching her a lesson she had never expected. Humans were not easily measured. She decided to test him further. Using the console by her side, she activated a series of holographic projections. The images showed Zinthari warships, star maps, and simulations of planetary defenses. The displays were designed to intimidate, to overwhelm the senses, to make prisoners understand that resistance was useless. Eli leaned forward slightly, watching the holograms with interest. "Impressive," he said quietly. "You have a strong fleet. Your technology is advanced. I can see why your species commands respect in this sector." Verena's antennae twitched again. Instead of fear or awe, he spoke with observation, with acknowledgement. It was rare for a human or any species to react this way. Usually prisoners would shrink back, falter, or display submission. But Eli analyzed, assessed, and even complimented. "Does it not worry you?" she asked sharply. "To be so calm while facing beings who could destroy you." "It does not worry me," Eli replied. "I understand that I am vulnerable. But understanding vulnerability is different from being paralyzed by it. I am aware of the risks. I take them because I must. And because fear does not help me make decisions." Verena frowned slightly. The conversation was no longer about intimidation. It was about ideas, about principles, about human resilience. She had thought she was in control, but now she felt something unfamiliar, the desire to understand him, "You humans," she said slowly, choosing her words carefully, "are considered reckless, unpredictable, and chaotic. Why should I believe that your species is anything more than a threat to stability?" Eli smiled faintly. "Because humans are more than chaos. We are curious, persistent, and determined. We make mistakes, yes, but we also learn from them. We build, we create, we protect. And sometimes we surprise even those who think they know us." Irina's eyes narrowed. "And you, human? Do you surprise even yourself?" "I try," he said quietly. "Every day. But the point is not to surprise myself. The point is to act rightly, even when the outcome is uncertain. That is what humans do. That is what makes us strong." For a moment the room was silent, except for the soft hum of the life support systems and the faint blinking of the holographic displays. Verena studied him, weighing every word, every expression. The human's calmness was not weakness. His smile was not mockery, and his quiet confidence so simple. So human was teaching her a lesson she had never expected to learn. She decided to shift tactics. She leaned back slightly, crossing her arms. "Tell me, Eli Turner," she said, "if humans are so strong, why do you allow yourselves to be captured? Why not fight, flee, or resist?" Eli regarded her carefully. "Because fighting is not always the answer. Resistance can be useful, yes, but sometimes understanding is stronger. I chose to cooperate, not because I am weak, but because I understood that my actions could prevent harm. Not only to myself, but to others as well. Strength is not only in combat. Strength is also in choice." Verena blinked. The words were simple, yet they resonated with something deep inside her. In Zinthri culture, strength was measured by control, by dominance, by the ability to bend others to your will. But here was a human, seated calmly, explaining that strength could come from choice. "From courage? From restraint? You speak of choice," she said softly. "And yet you are bound by my authority." "I am bound by circumstance," he replied, "not by fear. Circumstance is different. It does not take away your ability to act wisely. It only reminds you that there are limits you must respect. But respect does not mean submission. Understanding does not mean weakness." Verena considered his words. For centuries, she had believed that fear was the greatest tool, the strongest weapon. Yet Eli Turner, simply by remaining calm and smiling, was challenging everything she knew. She felt a strange sense of admiration tinged with frustration. Because his composure was so unlike anything she had encountered, she decided to ask a more personal question. "Have you ever been afraid, human? Truly afraid?" Eli's eyes softened slightly. "Yes," he admitted. "Many times. Fear is natural, but it does not define us. What defines us is how we respond to it. I have faced danger, loss, and uncertainty. I have felt fear, but I have learned to act despite it. That is what makes humans." Human Verena felt an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. She had never experienced anything like this in a prisoner's presence. Most beings she encountered responded to fear or pain. Most begged for mercy or tried to manipulate her authority. Eli Turner had done none of these. He had smiled, observed, and spoken with calm confidence. And through all of it, he had taught her something new. Strength was not only in domination, it could also be in courage, resilience, and understanding. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "You are a remarkable human. I did not expect this. You are not afraid of me. Not because you are reckless, but because you understand yourself and your choices." Eli smiled again, faintly, simply. "Perhaps," he said. "But remarkable or not, I am only one human. My species is full of surprises. And perhaps one day your species will learn that strength is more than fleets and weapons. That sometimes a calm mind and a brave heart are stronger than fear itself." Verena remained silent for a moment, letting his words sink in. She'd entered this room expecting to intimidate a human prisoner. She had prepared to assert authority, to demonstrate power, to ensure obedience. But now, after a simple conversation and a calm smile, she found herself questioning everything. And she realized, with a mixture of frustration and admiration, that this human had already begun to change her. By the time the guard came to announce the next stage of his confinement, Verena had made a decision. She would not treat Eli Turner like an ordinary prisoner. She would not try to dominate him. Instead, she would study him, understand him, and perhaps even learn from him. For the first time, Commander Verena faced a challenge that could not be solved with strength alone. A challenge that required patience, insight, and the willingness to see another being as more than a target for fear. And Eli Turner, by simply smiling and remaining calm, had given her that challenge. Commander Verena returned to her private quarters after the long session with Eli Turner. The corridors of the station were quiet, but her mind was anything but. For the first time in her career, she felt uncertainty. Not about strategy or tactics, but about a single human. She poured herself a cup of steaming synth tea, staring at the starfield projected against the glass. Beyond the station, the void stretched endlessly, vast and empty, dotted with the lights of distant ships and planets. She had seen the universe in ways few Zinthri could, charted countless systems, studied hundreds of species, but still, a single human unsettled her. Eli's calm demeanor, his easy smile, and his thoughtful words kept returning to her mind. How can one human be so composed, she wondered, so confident yet so aware? His courage was different from the bravery of Zinthri soldiers. It was quiet, resilient, and firm, not driven by discipline or duty, but by choice. Verena decided she needed to know more about him. She returned to the holding chamber, but the room was empty. The guard on duty had already begun logging the usual reports. Verena requested access to the station's observation records. Wanting to understand the full story behind the human's capture, the security tapes showed Eli's ship drifting near a Zinthri patrol route. He had been repairing a damaged engine core when the patrol ship approached. Sensors indicated his movements were careful, methodical, and non-threatening. Yet the patrol had detected him as an unidentified craft. By protocol, they had intercepted him. Verena watched the tapes again, slowing down the motion. Eli had remained calm through every stage, communicating politely with the patrol, following their instructions, never resisting. The patrol had assumed hostility because they expected humans to panic, to fight, or to flee. But Eli had done neither. He was not a threat, Verena realized slowly. He was helping. The revelation surprised her. For decades, Zinthri intelligence had labeled humans as reckless and unpredictable. Many officers had assumed that if a human approached Zinthri territory, it was for sabotage or espionage. Yet here was a human, acting responsibly, calmly, even thoughtfully, in a dangerous situation. And instead of receiving gratitude, he had been captured. Verena's antennae twitched with irritation not at him, but at the assumptions of her species. Humans were often misjudged. They did not fit neatly into categories of fear, obedience, or aggression. They were more complex, more adaptable, and more resilient than her superiors allowed themselves to believe. She decided to review the human's communications next. The logs showed Eli sending careful transmissions to his command, explaining the situation and requesting assistance. He had not hidden his position, nor had he attempted to deceive anyone. His actions were deliberate, clear, and transparent qualities the Xinthari valued, though they rarely expected them from humans. Verena found herself feeling a growing respect for him. His calmness was not ignorance. It was awareness. His smile was not arrogance. It was confidence rooted in understanding. And his patience was not weakness. It was strategy. The more she studied him, the more she realized that the intelligence reports her superiors had relied on were incomplete. They had focused on human unpredictability and recklessness, ignoring the courage, resilience, and adaptability that truly defined the species. Eli Turner embodied all these qualities. Verena leaned back in her chair, staring at the starlit expanse outside the station. This human. He is different. Not because he is fearless, but because he chooses how to respond. Her thoughts were interrupted by a communication alert. It was from the Xinthari Council, requesting her immediate presence. Verena quickly gathered the observation logs and prepared to present her findings in the council chamber. The atmosphere was tense. Council members whispered among themselves, clearly expecting her to report that the human was dangerous, or at least a security risk. Verena took her place before the council, her posture calm but determined. "Commander Verena," the head counselor began, "what is the status of the human prisoner?" Verena paused, choosing her words carefully. The human, Eli Turner, was captured under the assumption that he posed a threat, she explained. After reviewing all available data, it appears he acted responsibly. He was repairing a damaged vessel and did not engage in hostile behavior. He followed protocol, communicated clearly, and avoided conflict whenever possible. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several council members raised antennae in skepticism. One senior officer spoke sharply. "You suggest we release him?" "He is in our custody because humans are unpredictable. We cannot risk underestimating them." Verena shook her head slightly. "Underestimating him has already caused a mistake. Capturing him created unnecessary tension. This human did not threaten us. His actions demonstrate intelligence, awareness, and courage. Releasing him would be a step toward understanding his species rather than provoking conflict." Another counselor interjected, "And what of his species? Do you claim all humans are like him?" Verena's eyes hardened slightly. "No, I claim that humans are not to be judged solely on reputation or fear. They are capable of unexpected resilience and bravery. Eli Turner is an example, but he is not an anomaly in his species. I have studied them for decades, and patterns suggest that humans are more adaptable than we give them credit for." The council fell silent, considering her words. Verena continued. "His calm demeanor, his thoughtful choices, and his refusal to give in to fear are qualities we should study, not punish. They indicate a species capable of cooperation and understanding, even with us." One younger council member, curious and cautious, spoke up. "And what of our protocols? What if his species has hidden motives?" Verena met the young officer's gaze. "Then we observe carefully, but we do not punish or intimidate preemptively. Actions speak louder than assumptions. In this case, his actions demonstrate integrity and intelligence, not hostility." The head counselor leaned back, antennae twitching in contemplation. "Very well, Commander. You recommend leniency based on observation and analysis. Your report will be filed. But know this: if humans prove to be a danger, we will hold you accountable." Verena inclined her head. "Understood." After the council meeting, Verena returned to the observation deck. She stared at the stars, reflecting on everything she had learned. Eli Turner had not only remained calm in the face of authority, but he had also demonstrated qualities that challenged everything she believed about humans. And the more she considered it, the more she realized that these qualities were not weaknesses, they were strengths. She thought about the human's smile. That simple gesture, repeated so naturally, had been more powerful than any display of Xinthari force. It had unsettled her, commanded her attention, and forced her to reconsider her assumptions. It was a reminder that strength could take many forms, and that sometimes calmness and courage were stronger than intimidation. Verena decided to monitor him personally. She would observe his interactions, his decisions, and his behavior. not as an enemy, but as a student of something extraordinary. Humans, she realized, could not be measured by fear or authority alone. They required understanding, patience, and respect. Meanwhile, Elan remained in the holding chamber, unaware of the council's deliberations. He spent his time quietly observing the station, noting patterns in the guards' routines, and maintaining his calm demeanor. He had noticed the subtle changes in Commander Verena, the slight hesitation in her tone, the curiosity in her gaze, the way she now studied him rather than simply trying to intimidate him. Eli smiled faintly. He did not know if she fully understood him yet, but he sensed her openness to learning, and that made a difference. Humans were not only survivors, they were learners. And in this moment he realized that even in captivity, he could teach something valuable. The days passed, and Verena continued her observations. She asked questions not of interrogation, but of genuine curiosity. She asked about his species, their history, their motivations. She asked how humans survived in a universe full of dangers, how they adapted, and why they did not always give in to fear. Eli answered patiently, explaining his species' resilience, their creativity, and their ability to find hope, even in the darkest situations. He spoke of cooperation, of courage, and of the importance of understanding before judging. His calmness never faltered, and his smile remained a simple, quiet symbol of confidence that spoke louder than words. Verena found herself sharing her own thoughts, questions, and observations. She realized that this human was teaching her more than she had learned in decades of study. Not about tactics, not about combat, not about intimidation, but about life, choice, and strength. And slowly, she began to see the truth behind his capture. Eli Turner had not been reckless, nor had he been foolish. He had acted with awareness, with intention, and with integrity. He was a human in the truest sense of the word, resilient, courageous, and unafraid to smile even in the face of uncertainty. By the end of the week, Verena made a decision. She would recommend his release to the council, not because he was weak, because he had demonstrated qualities that deserved respect. She would defend him, even if it risked her own standing. Eli Turner, simply by being himself, calm, brave, and smiling, had begun to change the way a Zinthari commander thought. And Verena knew, deep down, that this change was only the begin. Commander Verena stood in the observation room, watching the blinking lights of the station's sensors. For the past few days, she had followed Eli Turner closely, analyzing his actions, his reactions, and his calm demeanor. The human had remained steady, polite, and observant. Even as she carefully tested his patience with questions and minor provocations, she had learned more about his species in that short time than she had in decades of research. The quiet of the station was suddenly broken by a series of incoming transmissions. Verena's wrist console hummed as alerts appeared. Multiple unidentified vessels were approaching the station from the outer perimeter. Her first instinct was caution's Zinthari protocol. It demanded immediate defensive action whenever unknown ships entered controlled space. Yet something about the pattern of movement, the careful communication signals, and the precision of their approach suggested that these were not hostile forces. Her antennae twitched as she studied. The incoming signals, human ships, she murmured, almost to herself. They are coming, but not to attack. The command center lit up as the docking bays opened for communication. A human voice came through clearly, calm and steady. Commander Verena, the voice said. This is Captain Rios of the Earth Fleet. We have come to request the release of our officer Eli Turner. We mean no harm. We wish only to discuss his safe return. Verena's heart quickened not with fear, but with anticipation. She had suspected that humans might come for him, but she had not realized they would approach diplomatically without threat or demand. Their method reflected the same qualities she had observed in Eli, calm, direct, and confident without aggression. She instructed her officers to prepare a secure communication channel and granted permission for the human delegation to transmit directly. The projection of Captain Rios appeared in the room, a tall human with a strong presence and calm eyes. He did not carry weapons on his belt, and his posture was relaxed but confident. "Commander Verena," Rios said politely, "we understand the protocols of your station. We respect your authority and do not wish to violate your procedures. Eli Turner has been captured, but he has acted with honor and integrity throughout. We request his release so that we may continue our mission peacefully." Verena observed the calm diplomacy in his tone. There was no arrogance, no threats, no attempts at manipulation, no reason and respect. It was exactly the kind of approach she had seen Eli exhibit in his actions and demeanor. The human's behavior reflected his species' capacity for negotiation and understanding, rather than brute force. She nodded, her antennae twitching slightly. "Captain Rios," she said, her voice calm, "your approach is noted. Eli Turner has been under my observation. My assessment confirms that he acted responsibly and posed no threat. I will recommend his release to the Council." Rios's expression softened into a slight, appreciative smile. "Thank you, Commander. We are grateful for your understanding. We hope this will mark the beginning of a cooperative relationship between our species and yours." Verena turned to the security officers monitoring the docking bays. "Prepare for the human delegation to board. Maintain protocol, but do not engage unless necessary. This is a diplomatic mission, not a battle." As the human ships docked, Verena walked toward the holding chamber. Eli Turner was seated calmly as always, his faint smile never fading. He glanced at her and inclined his head slightly. "Commander," he said quietly, "I see they have arrived." "Yes," she replied. "Your species has approached carefully, diplomatically. I have recommended your release. The Council is considering it now." Eli smiled faintly. "I appreciate your efforts." Verena studied him, her curiosity growing. "You humans. You are not always the unpredictable beings the Zinthari believe you to be, are you?" Eli's eyes sparkled. "Some of us are unpredictable. Yes. But we are also capable of great reasoning, patience, and cooperation. It depends on the situation and on the choices we make." The Council convened shortly afterward, discussing the report Verena had submitted. Several members expressed concern about releasing a human, citing the species' reputation for unpredictability. But Verena defended her recommendation, presenting the observation logs, behavioral patterns, and Eli's consistent, calm, and responsible behavior. "Commander Verena's assessment is thorough," she said firmly. "This human acted responsibly. His capture was a misunderstanding. Releasing him will demonstrate that the Zinthari are capable of judgment based on observation and reason, not solely on reputation or fear." The Council murmured among themselves. Some members hesitated, unwilling to challenge protocol, but others saw the merit in Verena's argument. The head counselor finally spoke. "Very well. Eli Turner shall be released to the delegation. Commander Verena's recommendation will be noted. Let this serve as a reminder that not all humans are threats, and that caution and understanding can prevent unnecessary conflict." Verena felt a sense of satisfaction, though tempered with awareness. The Council had agreed, but politics were still delicate. Any misstep could cause tension between the species. She returned to the holding chamber to inform Eli of the decision. Eli remained calm as always. When she explained that he would soon be released, he simply nodded. "I expected nothing less," he said. "Your species is capable of reason, Commander Verena. I am pleased you have shown it today." Verena smiled faintly. "It is rare for me to encounter a human who teaches me something rather than the other way around." Eli's eyes twinkled. "Sometimes the lesson is not in the position of power, but in the willingness to observe and learn. You have done well." The human delegation entered the chamber shortly afterward. Captain Rios extended a hand in greeting, which Verena noted without comment. The gesture was respectful, confident, and devoid of threat. Eli stood and shook hands with Rios, smiling as he did. "Commander Verena," Rios said politely, "thank you for your understanding. Your judgment in this matter will be remembered. I hope that this marks the beginning of a positive relationship between our species." Verena inclined her head. "I hope so, Captain. Humans are complex and often underestimated. But your officer has demonstrated qualities worth respect. I look forward to seeing how your species continues to surprise us. Eli and Rios nodded. The human delegation prepared to depart, and Verena watched them go. As the docking clamps disengaged and the ships drifted away, she felt a strange mix of admiration and curiosity. The human species, she realized, was far more capable than the Zinthori reports suggested. And one human in particular, Lyra Turner, had changed her perception completely. After the delegation departed, Verena returned to the observation deck, staring out at the endless stars. She reflected on everything she had learned, the calmness of the human, his patience, his reasoning, and his unwavering smile. These qualities were not just individual traits, they were emblematic of his species. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and capable of cooperation, even in situations where intimidation and force were expected. Her thoughts turned to the future. If humans were like Eli, then alliances could be possible. Understanding and cooperation might replace fear and suspicion. And perhaps the universe could benefit from the unexpected strengths of this remarkable species. Eli Turner had returned to his ship, but the lessons he left behind lingered with Verena. His calm smile, simple words, and composed demeanor had challenged everything she knew about power, strength, and intimidation. She had entered this encounter expecting to dominate a human prisoner. Instead, she had learned, observed, and reflected, and she knew she would never see humans the same way again. For the first time, Commander Verena realized that diplomacy, understanding, and respect could achieve what intimidation alone never could. The human solution was not in fear, nor in force, nor in aggressive tactics. It was in calm reasoning, careful observation, and the willingness to act with integrity even in the face of uncertainty. She allowed herself a small, quiet smile. Eli Turner had taught her something extraordinary, that strength could be subtle, patience could be powerful, and a simple smile could change the course of events in ways no weapon ever could. And as she watched the human ships fade into the distance, she felt a sense of hope. Perhaps the next time humans and Zinthori met, it would not be in conflict but in cooperation. Perhaps one day, species across the galaxy could learn from one another in ways that transcended fear, suspicion, and preconception. And somewhere deep inside, Verena knew that she would remember this human, this calm, smiling man. For the rest of her life, the universe was vast, full of dangers, wonders, and surprises. And Eli Turner had reminded her that even in captivity, even in situations that seemed impossible, one being could teach an entire species a lesson about courage, choice, and understanding. The hum of the station was steady, almost serene, as Commander Verena walked slowly through the observation deck. The stars beyond the glass stretched endlessly, sparkling like a sea of diamonds in the darkness of space. The events of the past days weighed on her mind, but in a way that was unfamiliar yet satisfying. Humans, she realized, were not merely chaotic or unpredictable. They were capable of patience, courage, and understanding. And one human, in particular, Lyra Turner, had taught. Her lessons she could never have imagined. The station's corridors were quiet, but Verena's thoughts were loud with reflection. She thought about her first encounter with Eli, the moment he smiled at her, the way that simple gesture had unsettled her more than any show of force could. She had entered that holding chamber ready to intimidate, ready to dominate, confident in the authority her species valued above all else. And yet, she had learned that a calm mind and quiet courage could challenge power in ways she had never anticipated. The human delegation had left the station hours ago, their ships gliding gracefully into the darkness, leaving a trail of soft light behind them. Commander Verena had watched until the last vessel disappeared into the distance. She thought about Eli's parting words, about his insistence that understanding was stronger than fear, that choice was more powerful than intimidation, and she thought about the Zinthori Council. While the decision to release him had been made, the Council remained cautious. Some members still viewed humans with suspicion, still believed the species to be a risk, but Verena had seen what she had seen. Humans, at least some of them, could teach lessons that no simulation or intelligence report could ever provide. She returned to her private quarters. her steps echoing lightly through the halls. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel admiration without reservation. Eli Turner had not only survived captivity, but had also changed the way she viewed her own species, perhaps the universe itself. Her communicator beeped, and she answered immediately. The voice of a council liaison came through, careful and measured. Commander Verena, the council has requested a full report on the humans' behavior and your recommendations for future encounters. Verena took a deep breath. Report will be submitted, she said calmly. But I will add this. Humans are more capable of reason, courage, and cooperation than our records indicate. Eli Turner is an example of what humans can accomplish when they act with awareness and integrity. He is not a threat. He is a bridge. The liaison paused, then replied softly. A bridge, I see. Your observations will be included in the council's records. Verena ended the communication and sat quietly for a moment. She thought about the lessons she had learned from a single human. Strength was not only in fleets and weapons, but in courage, patience, and the ability to act rightly under pressure. Power could be wielded in subtle ways, and a smile so simple, so human, could change minds, hearts, and perhaps even the course of future interactions between species. Days passed, and Verena continued her work with renewed focus. But she never forgot Eli Turner. She found herself thinking about him in quiet moments, wondering how he would continue his mission, what choices he would make, and how his calm confidence would influence those around him. She realized that humans had a way of inspiring others without demanding it, teaching lessons quietly yet powerfully. Then 1 week later, a message arrived. It was from Eli himself, transmitted from a secure communication channel aboard his ship. Commander Verena, he began, his calm voice familiar and steady. I wanted to thank you for your judgment and your willingness to see beyond fear and protocol. Your actions ensured that no harm came to either party. It is rare to encounter someone willing to observe first and judge second. I hope this is only the beginning of understanding between our species. Verena smiled faintly. Eli Turner, you continue to teach me. I am grateful for your insight, and I hope your species and mine can indeed learn from one another. The universe is vast, and cooperation may be the key to survival and progress. He paused briefly. I agree, Commander. And perhaps one day we will meet again not as prisoner and interrogator, but as equals, working toward a shared goal. Verena inclined her head. Perhaps we will, Eli. Perhaps we will. The communication ended, leaving the observation deck quiet once more. But the words lingered in her mind, a reminder of the strength she had witnessed, the lessons she had learned, and the possibilities that lay ahead. Weeks later, diplomatic channels between humans and Xinthari began to open. Verena was asked to serve as a liaison for discussions. Her first-hand experience with Eli Turner making her uniquely qualified, she worked closely with representatives from the human fleet, observing their methods, their patience, and their ability to negotiate without aggression. It was during these sessions that Verena realized the full impact of her encounter with Eli. The humans approached each discussion with calm reasoning, offering solutions rather than demands. They respected authority, but they also demonstrated initiative and courage. Their methods reflected what she had seen in Eli, a quiet confidence, a willingness to act correctly even when the outcome was uncertain, and the subtle power of understanding rather than intimidation. The Xinthari Council observed these interactions closely. Some remained skeptical, but many began to see the value of cooperation. Verena's reports highlighted examples of human resilience and insight, citing specific incidents from Eli's conduct that demonstrated qualities her species had long underestimated. Months later, the first joint exploratory mission between humans and Xinthari was launched. Verena watched from the station as the ships departed together. Humans and Xinthari side by side, navigating the stars with a shared goal. She felt a quiet pride, knowing that her choice to observe, understand, and advocate for Eli Turner had paved the way for this unprecedented cooperation. And somewhere aboard the lead human ship, Eli Turner stood at the observation deck, smiling quietly. He had faced captivity, uncertainty, and the assumptions of an entire species. Yet he had acted with patience, courage, and integrity, and now he was part of something far greater. His smile reflected not only his calm confidence, but also the subtle strength of humanity itself, strength that could inspire even the most disciplined of Xinthri commanders. Verena continued her duties, but she never forgot the lessons she had learned. She had entered a holding chamber, intending to intimidate a human, expecting defiance or fear. Instead, she had met courage, patience, and a quiet smile that changed everything. The experience reshaped her understanding of strength, power, and the potential of cooperation. The universe remained vast, full of danger, uncertainty, and challenges. But for the first time, Verena felt hope. Hope that humans and Xinthri could work together, that they could explore, learn, and grow side by side. And she knew that it all began with a single human who had smiled calmly in the face of intimidation and, in doing so, had taught an entire species a lesson about courage, understanding, and choice. Years later, when she reflected on her career, Verena often returned to that moment, the day she had faced Eli Turner, expecting to dominate a prisoner, only to be challenged by his calm demeanor and quiet confidence. She remembered the smile that had unsettled her, the words that had made her question assumptions, and the lessons that had shaped the future. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable, but in ways that could be inspiring rather than dangerous. They were capable of patience, courage, and understanding that transcended fear and intimidation. And the simple truth remained, sometimes. The greatest power lay not in strength or weaponry, but in a calm mind, a brave heart, and a quiet, unshakable smile. Commander Verena smiled softly as she looked out at the stars. The galaxy was full of surprises, and the future was brighter than she had ever imagined. Eli Turner, with his calm demeanor and gentle smile, had shown her the way, and she knew that humanity, at its best, could be a force for understanding, cooperation, and hope in a vast and unpredictable universe. The universe was changing, and so were the Xinthri, and it all began with a human and a simple, unforgettable smile.